Hi guys, and welcome to what I believe is the last of my video discussions for my critical thinking class through Luther Rice. And so today we're going to be discussing a few different topics. One is the question of whether or not television as a medium is fit to aid us in the realm of education. The second one is whether or not we should give preference to Wexleyan or Orwellian philosophy when it comes to the danger or the plight that our society is in, and I'll explain those when we get there. And last, we're going to talk about um, how and why we should have a philosophy and why we should have a role in the church of kind of combating this problem that Neil Postman has given and presented to us. And so I think the answer is a resounding yes. We should be concerned with this, and we should be a driving force in combating this. And so we'll talk about for just a few moments of how and why I think the church should be able to do that. So back to the first topic that I mentioned about television helping in the realm of education. I believe that, as Neil Postman has so eloquently said in his book and said over and over and over again, that television is not applicable and it's not built in such a way that it promotes higher thought or deeper thought in education. And so it does this through giving us short snippets of information. And when it delivers the information, it has a certain emotion or a certain tone attached to this information that tells us how we should think and how we should feel about that information, as opposed to just giving us that information. And so when we think about that in the realm of education, we have to realize that in television, everything that we see has an agenda. It's supposed to make us feel a certain way. It's supposed to make us think a certain thing, as opposed to if you're just reading a book, or if you're having a teacher teach, they're just giving you the information and allowing you to process it over a long period of time, as opposed to a 30 to 45 minute, maybe even an hour long program on a television show. You're going to be taught in the classroom by an actual teacher, or you're reading a whole book. That's going to be a longer, more substantial learning process, as opposed to television. And so, no, I don't believe television is fit for that. And I think that part of the reason that we're having such an issue in our society with television just kind of controlling our thought process, and media as a whole controlling our thought process, is because we improperly use those mediums of social media, of the internet, and of television in such a way that we tell them and we give it a premium spot in our life of being able to tell us how we should think and we should feel, as opposed to, say, the Word of God or the Bible, allowing it to show us how we should think and how we should feel about certain things. And so, when we misuse the medium of television in the realm of education, our education level is going to suffer. And there's even been a change over the last few years in how even biographies and things done on, say, the History Channel is presented. It went from being black and white. Historians, or black and white with historians telling us in a very dry, monotone voice the actual facts of what happened during, say, World War II or World War One, to now it's a dramatization with people that look nice, that have their hair fixed and their makeup done, and they look a certain way, giving us an emotional feel of what happened, and music being used in that way, to a pretty large extent, to not only are we getting what happened, but we're also getting how we should feel about what happened in these biographies and things. And so I feel like television is not necessarily a proper medium for that. Next, we're going to talk about, for just a few minutes, about whether Wesleyan or Orwellian philosophy is better used to describe and to give a better picture of the plight that our society and our culture is in. And so first, I guess I probably better describe and to kind of give some background on which one is which and what they mean. Wesleyan was kind of interesting. Wexley, I guess would be his name, was interesting in his philosophy in that he kind of taught that things that are bad for us not necessarily all look bad. Like if something was trying to dictate or trying to control our thought process in our society, as we see Postman talking about in his book, then it wouldn't necessarily look bad, that it might look something that is pleasing or that is good. Whereas Orwell or Orwellian philosophy is kind of that if something were wanting to control and to dictate how we think or how we feel, then it would do so and we would see it coming. And that it would look like a prison cell with guards and with bars and with wardens and things. But I believe that Wesleyan's philosophy is a lot closer to what we saw because when we look at how history has kind of progressed and how we've gotten to the place that we're at in our society in which we are a very media driven people, it happened in a very slow fade. That we didn't go from being, just white to black, but it was a fade over several years of gray, turning from white to black. And so we saw how television kind of slipped in, and it was a general and gradual change from allowing the written and spoken word to dictate and kind of educate us in how we should view our world around us, to now it is television and internet and social media that has a very big emotional charge, and it's not more focused around being educated and well informed, but instead it's about having the appearance of being educated and well informed, but rather being emotionally charged and being very passionate about a subject without necessarily knowing exactly what it is you're talking about with that subject. And as I mentioned before, it does so with giving us small snippets of information shrouded and surrounded by emotionally charged music, shrouded and surrounded by people that look a certain way and that are really honestly actors and actresses that when they give us a certain piece of news information, they let the emotion on their face show and tell us how we should feel about the situation. We see people on the news talking about school shootings and things just kind of in passing. And there's not really a lot of shock and terror and emotion on their face. And they talk about it for a few minutes and then it's gone. Whereas I feel like a natural and healthy reaction to a school shooting should be with fear and with terror and with tears for the brokenness of our community and our society, but we're not shown that on television. And so instead, we began to kind of desensitize ourselves to these things, creating a society and a nation of people that really are unfazed by certain things. And so that's where we're finding ourselves today. Now, last, I'm going to discuss just briefly for a few minutes on whether or not and how the church should combat this. And I believe that we definitely should. That the Bible warns us that there would come a day in which man would be unable to blush. And the thought process and kind of the thought behind that is that we wouldn't be able to blush, or that we wouldn't be embarrassed by sin, or that we wouldn't be shocked, and basically that we would be desensitized to the brokenness of our world. And so I can directly see, especially through reading what Postman had to say in his book Amusing Ourselves to Death, how in a very real spiritual way, we are beginning to see that come to play through television, through the use of all these different things. Now, it is our job as a church and it's our job as the people of God to reject what society and what media is trying to tell us we should think, say, and do and react about certain situations. And I'm not one of the people that believes that, it's a sin to have a television in your home or even to watch television. I don't believe that. I feel like that is a huge extreme. I feel like instead that we should have a proper thought process on how we should let the television affect our minds and what place in our lives we give the television. That it should not be a place of education. It should not be a place um, of higher, deeper thought. That it should be a place of simply of entertainment. That going into watching television as a Christian with the thought process of this is not going to change how I think about my religion. This isn't going to change how I think about my worldview because I have a Christian biblical worldview. But instead, I'm just wanting to laugh for a little while, or I'm wanting to watch something that is going to entertain me for a little while, as opposed to something that is going to change how I think or how I feel or how I view the world. And though so many people would not admit that that's the thought process they have when they go into watching a movie or to watching television or even listening to music, but that's really ultimately what's happening, what's taking place. And so, as a church, we should be busy teaching and informing people that come into our churches about how to have a Christian worldview and how and why it is healthy to have such worldview, and give importance and give place to things such as the written word or the spoken word, and perhaps move away from such a dependence on television as not just a place of entertainment, but as a place of education, as a place of dictating how we should think. And so, with that being said, it's been rather enjoyable to do these video discussions and to read these books and be able to kind of get out some different thoughts that I've been having while reading these books and stuff. So, thank you for your time, and I appreciate it. Thank you.